Hello and good evening, and welcome to the final installment of the Rebel Finance Recap. And this week we are going to look at predicting the future, which, let's face it, no one can do. So let's change it to creating the future or building the future. Basically, you have the power to sort of determine really the direction of your life. And in this particular case, we're going to talk about finances, but you can change a lot of things in your life. But let's start with just this one. So an example here is how Alan really, and his saying, the extraordinary belongs to those that create it, has really sort of taken off. This was a screenshot I did of a Google search of images last year, and as you can see, his actions to create this sort of life is definitely making a difference, is appearing on Google. And I did the same search again this year, and I can see even more of the top searches will contain that familiar face that we were all used to seeing. So you can certainly take actions, and it is the process, it is the actions that will create the outcome over time. As they say, you can overestimate what you can achieve in a week or a year, but generally people greatly underestimate the amount that they can achieve over a period of a decade. So even if it seems like a huge project, don't be put off by that, because it's actually quite achievable, surprisingly so. Here we have another little saying. Have a quick look at that. What do you do? Do you decide to stick in your historical stories? Do you decide to stay in the history, in the past that you have grown up through with all those lessons you've learned? Or are you now going to take what you have learned and do something with it? Because you can do two things. You can either do nothing with what you've learned over the course of the Rebel Finance sort of school, or you can actually take action. My advice to you would be, consider yourself as future you, and then take those actions to throw a line to past you to help you up the stairs and say thank you. So start taking those actions now. That future you has got their investment pot. They've reached fire, or they've at least got an amount to make them more comfortable. And then your past you, or that's today's you, will most definitely be saying thank you. You will get resistance from those around you. That is generally to be expected. It will be difficult. People probably won't understand a change in attitude, especially. So if you were someone who used to go out loads and spend loads on stuff, and you stop doing that, people will question it. They will wonder why you're doing that. And not everybody will understand being able to sort of look at a destination and work towards it. A lot of people, especially post-COVID, have gone very much to living in the moment and, come on, we should go out, we should do this, we should get that, and don't put things off. And it's true, we don't know what is going to happen in life. However, we can make a plan for having the best life that we can over time. So let's agree on a few fundamentals. We do not want to pick individual stocks. Why might that be? Because we can't predict the future. We can't predict what's going to happen. And as you can see here, pretty much overnight, the Bank of Russia dropped to 3% of its original stock value when Ukraine was invaded, which is now over a year ago. From my own learnings, stocks which you think should be really good, like some of the electric vehicle companies, also can drop substantially. So yeah, I've learned my lesson there. And most definitely won't be doing that sort of thing again. So what do we say about the investment markets and that sort of thing. And that is basically that even if you are somebody who is really good financially and can read the fundamentals and can read a stock sheet and all that sort of stuff, generally people are not successful at stock picking and not successful at picking a time, because there are events that happen that nobody could have predicted. I mean, if you look at this chart, you know, there's a whole bunch of things which have happened over the last, what's that? That's since 1980, so that's 43 years. If you make it 45 now, we need to add the Ukraine war in there. A whole bunch of stuff which has happened, which was generally not predictable, or certainly not predictable by a vast number of people in the world. So it's timing the market, it's not timing the market. If I was to take a pen, let's see if I can get a little marker here, and draw a line from the beginning through to the end, there we go. We can see that the general trend is definitely in an upwards direction. Now, granted, if you bought anything in 2008 at the point of the Lehman Brothers collapse, you would have had to wait. Oops, sorry about that. Try and get a fairly flat line. You would have had to wait until about 2013 before your money was worth the same as it was at the peak before the Lehman Brothers collapse. Yes, that's 5 years. However, if you take a look at the upside on that, if you had bought and had held, which is what you should do, oh, I'll come back, you can see that even buying in 2008, you are still following an upward trend if you look at the rule that you're investing for at least a decade, ideally longer. Okay, so as we say with this investing, it is a long term goal. It's not putting something in this week and looking to, you know, double your money in the next month. Not at all. We are talking about putting money in and leaving it there for the long term. Okay, yeah, you could say I should getting ahead of myself now. We're going to go to them another slide. So try and change this, just do it, of putting some money into the market to adjust, did it. And if we take the example of Alan and Katie again, I mean, they sold, when they sold their flats that they had in Basingstoke, they literally got the money from that one day and stuck it all into their Vanguard fund the next day. So yeah, they know what works for them, because this is the other thing. You need to decide what works for you, what you are comfortable with, because even though statistically it is always 95% of the time proven that the time in the market is what counts the most, some people are not comfortable with just putting all their money in. They would prefer to do what's called dollar cost averaging, which is where you put in a little bit every month. So say you've got a £20,000 ISA allowance, rather than sticking £20,000 in on the 6th of April when you get your new allocation, you might want to spread that £20,000 over a 12-month period. So put in however much 20 divided by 12 is. Let's call it 10. Put in £200, sorry, £2,000 a month for each month for 10 months. Okay, so you might want to dollar cost average in that way. As I said, it is what you are comfortable with, because at the end of the day, you have to be happy with what you are doing. It has to make sense for you. So moving on then, once we've got into this investing side of things, it's then like, well, how can we work out when I'll be able to retire, when I'll reach my FIRE number? So there's a number of various calculators online. If you just put FIRE calculator into Google, or financial independence calculator into Google, you'll come up with a number of them. Here's one that is used in particular by the group, which is from Playing with Fire and the retirement calculator there. Yes, it is valued in dollars, but you can just change the, in your head, change dollars to pounds or whatever currency you're working in, euros, or all those sorts of things. There you can have a look at your savings rate, how much you've got to start with, how much you're going to be able to save, put in your estimated annual return of probably between 4 and 5%, to be conservative. And you can see there that the light orange represents the amount that you've saved over time, and the dark orange represents the amount that has been added by the growth of your investments because of the growth in the return. So you can see that by the end of that graph, there's actually more been added into the portfolio by the growth in the fund than actually by the cash that you're sort of putting in there. So the longer you can have it in, the more time it will have to grow, and it's very worthwhile doing that. However, if you are in debt, the calculations become a little bit harder, because it's most important that you get out of debt first, because chances are that your debt is going to be at a higher interest rate than any investment you can make will make. So from that perspective, you need to get out of debt first. So what if you're using the retirement calculators, you can use them to work out roughly how long it will take you to gain that amount of money. But what you also want to do is work out roughly when you'll get to your debt being paid off. And then the retirement calculator, it will give you the correct age that you get to retire. But it'll be the wrong year, because it won't they won't tally up. But if anybody wants to have a play with that later, or wants to go through an example, I'm very, very happy to sort of help with that. There we go. So as it says at the end there, if you are in debt, set your age as when you get out of debt. So say you were 30 now, but you were anticipating that you'd get out of debt by the age of, say, 35. Rather than putting your age into the calculator as 30, you put it in as 35, and then it will give you the right age that you would reach your sort of FIRE number. Here you can see on an average sort of 4% sort of invested and side of things, you can see that the amount of time it takes you to get your next 100,000 decreases quicker and quicker and quicker as time goes by. So in this example here, as you can see, it's getting that first 100,000, which is the hardest part. So it's like 12 and a half years. But then to get up to 200 is only 7.5. And then to get from 2 to 3, 5 years. And then from 3 to 400, it's less than 5 years. And it just keeps, because of this compound interest and you getting growth upon growth, that period of time will just keep shrinking and shrinking. So as I said, if you're just starting out, it can seem like a long, long journey. And that first little bit is the hardest part. But once you get started and stick with it, then it becomes quicker and easier as time goes by. But it does take a while to sort of get the momentum going. So for those of you out there who are young, fabulous time to start. However, if you are older, it's also a great time to start. And the reason for that is that if you're in your 40s or your 50s, those are actually your potentially best earning years. Those are the years by which you will have built up your career, hopefully, or your income to such a level as it's probably peaking as to the sort of amounts that you'll be earning. Unless, of course, you've built something with a not residual income, you're building up, say, royalties or something like that, which will carry on building over time. But Generally, for most of us, if you're in a job or in employment, then during your 40s and your 50s, those are the times when you will potentially be earning the most per year, if you like. In terms of where to put the money, do you put it in a pension or do you put it in an ISA? That's a very good question. But because of the tax advantages and the tax you can get back when you put your money into a pension, pensions are so much more valuable, especially earlier on, to put the money into, because you have a larger pot. So if you're putting money into an ISA, the government have taken tax off you, so you have less money to put into your ISA. If you put it into a pension, okay, you put in the same amount as you would have put into the ISA, but then the government gives you your tax back and they add it back to the amount that's gone into your pension. So that gives you back extra money, which then has the time to compound and to grow, whereas your ISA hasn't had that money, so it won't grow quite as quickly. So personally, I would go with the pension first. However, as Katie would say, it's not binary. You can do both. And it actually is important to do both if you are going to be retiring before you can get access to your pension. Now, the joy with a SIP, which is a self-invested pension plan or personal pension, is that you can get access to it 10 years before you get the government pension. Now, they've tied in that period now in the UK, so it is 10 years, which does mean that if the government moves the age at which they start paying a government pension, it also moves back the age at which you will be able to get access to your SIP. So currently, you will be able to access your SIP, I think, at the age of 57, because they start paying the pension at 67. However, there is talk, and it is fairly likely that after the next general election, they will start pushing the age up. And there's estimates at the moment that anybody who is 40 or under will likely not be able to access their SIP until they are 60. So it's likely that the government pension won't start paying out for anybody under 40 until they reach 70. Okay, I'll let that just sink in. So if you are thinking you are going to hit your FIRE number by 45 or by 50, you are going to have enough in your ISA to see you up to the age of 60. Okay, that is what I would be planning on if I was 40 or under. So that will help you to decide how you're going to balance whether you pay into your pension or pay into your ISA. The good thing, at least, is that they have removed the lifetime allowance from pensions now, and they have also increased the amount that you can put into your pension to 60,000 a year as opposed to 40,000 a year. The flip side of removing the lifetime allowance is they have put a cap on the amount that you can take out tax-free, because historically it was like, oh, you can take out 25% of your pension tax-free when you reach the age that you can start drawing it down from it. What they have said is you can take out 25% of your pension tax-free up to a certain amount, which is similar to the lifetime allowance. However, they have also tied that amount to one of the indexes. Now, I can't remember whether it was the consumer price index or the retail price index. Whichever one it was, it's the one that increases slower. As the government like to do, they like to put taxes on the one that increases higher, and they give allowances on the one that increases slower. So the amount that you can take out tax-free will be increasing over time. However, it won't be increasing at the same rate as costs go up, which is not great, but at least it is going to increase. Let's have a quick recap on why you should track your expenses. because this is one of the fundamental important things to do in order to get wealthy over time. So maintain your financial controls. It keeps you accountable. If you're doing it monthly, then you've got a hold on what is happening with your accounts. And especially if you're doing it with somebody else, whether it's a partner or whether you've buddied up with somebody, that's great. And over time, you can see how you're doing, and you can go, at the end of like a year, you can go, okay, I've made some gains. And then after 2, 3, 4 years, you might suddenly go, wow, I didn't think I could do that much. But as I say, you'll generally surprise yourself with how much you can achieve over a longer period of time. Hopefully it will help keep you more organized. You will feel less stressed because you will be aware that you're building up this financial security blanket to look after you. Undoubtedly, you'll find more ways to save money. Becomes a little bit of a game going, how much can I save this month? Hopefully reduce the impulse spending on stuff. And apart from being good for you, because you're buying back your life, think about it this way. You're also, because you're not buying as much stuff, as much more stuff isn't being made for you to consume. So you're actually sort of doing a little bit towards helping with the environment and all that sort of stuff as well. You can help avoid debt, you can stay focused, and all those sorts of things. And very important is to do an annual review. Okay. And companies and businesses do that. They look at all of their incomings, outgoings. They do a set of annual reports and all that sort of stuff, financial reviews, their activities, and all those bits. So it's really worthwhile doing it for yourself as well, and do it for your finances. So you can say, well, I had a target of this. How did I do? Yeah, I did well. How have I split it between my ISAs and my pensions? Recheck the retirement calculator. Have you been able to bring forward the date of hitting fire, or has it slipped back a bit? You can do it either way. So, and it doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a handle on where you're going. And then if you're not heading in entirely the direction you want to do, you can make a plan to change your direction. So I don't know if you can remember back to week 1, week 2, which direction, which course is your ship steering? Are you steering towards open waters and plentiful, bountiful times, or are you heading towards a rocky pile and sinking your boat? That's what these reviews are all about. And if you've done it monthly, then your yearly review is just, it's hopefully going to be a time for even bigger celebrations. And I don't know, in Alan's case, a bigger breakfast, I think, is what he aims for. So there we go. The homework, if you like, from this week. Go and have a look at various retirement calculators, play with different scenarios. If I save this much money a month, how long will it take me? If I save that much money, if I want to withdraw at a certain rate, how much longer will it take me? Because somebody asked a question the other day, well, what if I want to withdraw 5% rather than 4%? Well, these are the sorts of things you can put into these calculators, and it will help to tell you what is the most likely scenario. Now, even if it comes up with the most likely, you've got to remember this is not guaranteed, because, as I say, future performance cannot be based on past performance. People who invested in blockbusters probably thought they're onto a really good thing until blockbusters went out of business. So, no performance can be guaranteed. By using the index funds, you are doing it the safest way possible, because they are sort of self-cleaning, and they generally stay with the better performing companies, because if one starts performing badly, it slips off the index and they replace it with another one that's coming up. Get your investments in order. Know what investments you've got. If you've got a company pension, find out what it's invested in. What are the fees? What are the returns? Become aware of all the information around it, because until you are aware, you cannot really plan. You're just sort of going with what other people are saying. And it really helps to sort of become more comfortable in yourself and know what's happening. Most importantly, put a date in the diary. In fact, get a recurring date in the diary to review your sort of finances, as I say, whether it's on a monthly basis or whatever basis, but it's take action. And that's a really easy one to do, actually. Is just put a date in the diary and say, yeah, we're going to talk about it next Tuesday, or whenever you've got time free to do it. So a little more hint on how we can get to where we want to go in life. As Jim Rohn had said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend most time with. It's actually probably more than 5, because it's not just those people, but it's their friends as well, and that have had an influence and all that sort of stuff. But let's keep it with 5. So, choose wisely. And these don't have to be physical people that you're spending time with. I have a whole bunch of people that I spend time with on social media or on podcasts or on audiobooks and all that sort of stuff, which helps give me input into sort of creating my thoughts, my actions, and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a bunch of people there that I like to refer to. Steve Peters, especially over the last few years, been listening to a lot of his audiobooks, a lot of the work that he's done, a lot of the podcasts that he's been on. And it is incredible, actually, the change in my perception of what I can and can't do with my life, and actually how to go about doing it. And even the interactions I have with other people now are done differently. Can't really explain it brilliantly. I really should get a sort of a descriptive bit, but he explains how the mind works based around the chimp, what he calls the chimp model. And it explains that there's sort of 3 parts to your brain. One's a chimp, one's a computer, and one's a human. And the human can make logical decisions. Your chimp makes emotional decisions. And the computer kind of stores programs as to how to work. And both the chimp and the human will reference this computer. Now, the human can program the computer. So when in your lucid moments, when you know what you're doing, you can kind of put some programming there to say, well, if this happens, then this is how I should react. So because when something happens, your chimp will react so much faster than your human. So if something annoys the chimp, if there's not something in the computer that tells it how to sort of behave when that comes along, then your chimp's going to get upset, and it's going to sort of potentially retaliate or run away, because it does the old fight, flight, or freeze kind of thing. But well worth listening to. And if you have an Audible subscription, you can currently get his latest book, A Path Through the Jungle, for free on Audible. So yes, very, very well worthwhile listening to. The chap down bottom left is a chap called Aidan Park, who is an amazing guy in Los Angeles that I have a chat with every so often, because I do some work with him as a speaker. And yeah, I mean, his vibe, his attitude to life is totally phenomenal. If you can get his book, The Art of Being Yay, I would highly recommend it. Alan and Katie, well, most of you know who they are. If not all of you know who they are. And again, total, really good energy vibes. And the same from the chap on the right, who's a chap called Thomas Anglero. He has a podcast and has done some TED Talks and things as well, just about, creating possibility. And it's always really good. So, I mean, to focus back on finance, what sort of things could you do to have more financial focus in your life, to be able to sort of, surround yourself with people who are similarly minded in that way now? Well, you could pick any of these people. You have Christy and Bryce there, who are Millennial Revolution. You have got Mr. J.L. Collins. Then on the right, you've got Mr. Money Mustache in the middle, and I have forgotten the other two. Ken That's it. Ken's at the top right, and they are something penny, and it's gone. It's gone from my head. There we go. Yes, so there we go. That's the sort of thing that you can do to create your, if you like, your finance crowd. If you haven't got somebody in the house who is into it with you, then go and pick one of these people to essentially be your friend and to listen to their advice. So how do we build your future? First of all, be brave. It is basically, you're going to do something different from what most people are going to do. So it will be questioned. People will, wonder what you're doing. So you will have to be brave to sort of give it a go and stick with it. And to be fair, putting money into a pension and putting it into stock market funds rather than a cash account that pays interest or something is something that a lot of people won't have done. So it takes bravery to do that. And then dream about where you want to go, what you want to achieve, and all that sort of stuff. And experiment. As I said, it's not binary. Put a lump sum in, or dollar cost average, or do a bit of both. If you're more comfortable with that, put in half of a lump sum and then put in the rest over a period of time. Put some into your SIP, put some into your ISA. If you're young enough to be able to have a LISA, that is awesome. That's the best of both worlds, which is a lifetime ISA. And you can use it to pay for your first house if you haven't already got one. So absolutely, you can build your future. And if you do that, then, as it says, satisfaction is guaranteed, hopefully. But you will be in control, and that is what counts. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming along and listening and joining in, and hopefully over the course of the 9 weeks done over sort of 18 weeks, you will have picked up a whole bunch of hints and tips. Do keep an eye out on the Rebel Finance Facebook group for announcements as to when the next full Rebel Finance course is starting. And you can go to YouTube rather, and you can put in there Rebel Finance School or Alan Donegan, and you'll come up with the videos that they put on there, both around finance and entrepreneurship and all sorts of other stuff as well. So well worth doing. So until next time, this is going to be goodbye from me, and I'm going to take it over to the questions. Stop the recording.